How many of you were here for the opening of the Mix conference about a month ago? Okay, that's actually pretty good overlap. All of you will recognize this quote from Randall Rothenberg's opening remarks. The innovations that will change your world as marketing, advertising, and media professionals over the next 18 to 24 months, have nothing to do with technology. He went on to say, you heard me right. Technology is irrelevant to the future of marketing. How am I going to explain this to the Ad Operations Summit audience? But then he said, because when technology does its thing, the only thing left is storytelling. The only thing left is storytelling. So I've worked for a long time in this industry, and I've always focused on the technology. As a developer, as a program manager, a sales engineer, an analyst, and I learned a lot about serving ads, counting clicks, measuring ROI, calculating reach and frequency. Maybe a little weak on the last one, actually. But until this remark at the opening of Mix, it never had occurred to me to think of marketing as storytelling. Marketing is an advertiser engaged in a conversation with a consumer. Publishers, in particular, the editorial staff of publishers, draw those same consumers in by creating compelling content. So now think for a moment about what Randy said, that technology is irrelevant to the future of advertising. And then think about this. We're having a conversation, and I can say with certainty that the nature of our conversation has nothing to do with the air in this room. But if there were no air in this room, we would not be having this conversation. We are the technology infrastructure that supports the advertising industry. And someday, like the air in this room, we will be invisible, ubiquitous, most certainly taken for granted, and yet still utterly essential to the act of marketing. We, every one of us in this room, are the fourth element. What we do is make that conversation possible. We make it so the marketer can actually reach the consumer across time and channel. We create the channels that the consumer uses to access the content. And most importantly, we facilitate the measurement that allows the marketer to quantify the impact of their conversation. So, like the air in the room that allows us to have our conversation, we are the air that allows this conversation. So, Randy, you're a visionary, I dare say a futurist, and you were absolutely right. So, the IAB has some big goals. The growth of interactive advertising, and in particular, interactive share of total marketing spend. But this often leads us to think about our industry as a function of pulling brand dollars from traditional to digital. And I kind of consider these to be arbitrary boundaries. Because when you go back and you look at the four elements of marketing, there are no such arbitrary boundaries. It's just a marketer needing to engage in a conversation with the consumer. And yet, those boundaries are real. They often exist because of our technology. For instance, many marketers use gross rating points for the purpose of measurement. Until those marketers have an equivalent unit of measure that they can use for the digital industry, they're forced to divide their conversations. What if we built a system that allowed a marketer to measure across all channels, not just digital and not just traditional, but across all channels? That would be a function of breaking down these barriers. And I think just instead of moving dollars from one side of this pie to the other, just making a bigger pie. And who doesn't want a bigger pie? You don't have to raise your hands. So today, We're going to be talking about a variety of topics, some that are very relevant, some that are kind of interesting and new, some that are very general, some that are old, that have been around a long time, but we think we have some new things to say. And some that are fairly new, and like things that have blindsided our industry in the last couple of years. But throughout all of them, we're trying something a little different today. We want to engage the audience. We want to get a lot more audience participation. So there's going to be mic runners out in the audience the whole day during every session. In fact, if they're out there now, I'd really love for them to stand up or wave and have everyone look around and just make sure you get an eye on who they are. There we go. Margaret, I don't see any others. Okay, there we go, sorry. All right, so keep an eye on these folks because we want them wandering the room, we want them standing around the perimeter, and we really want you to be engaged and to come up with questions and to offer your insights. But as you think about those insights, think about your role as the fourth element of the advertising industry, and how we can make this utterly essential technology perform or enable the conversation between the marketer and the consumer so well and so thoroughly that it becomes invisible. Thank you.